Hi, this is Patrick with Trusty Huckster Mercantile. I am a vintage reseller. I have a shop on Etsy. You can find it at TH Mercantile. And this video is going to include some items that I had picked up prior to the quarantine. I wouldn't say it's a secret haul. I probably more act to call it a forgotten haul. It's actually the second half of a haul of some items that I had picked up a couple weeks before the quarantine on a trip through Indiana. I was traveling with a friend to Bloomington to see a show, so we went through some Goodwills, went to some flea markets, indoor flea markets that were along the way. Tried to meet Misty at Thrifter Junker Vintage Hunter. Sorry, I think that's right. She owns a brick and mortar location in Bedford, Indiana. It was during the time where she had closed her shop. Technically, it's still closed, but it was in that time as she was transitioning it that it just didn't work out for me to meet with her, but found plenty of other places. Now I know why she has so many great things on in her stores. But this is the second half to the haul that I showed last week. So with all of that said, let me go ahead and get started. Anyone who has followed my shop, follows me on Instagram, Facebook, or seen any of my videos in the past, you know I have an interest in pottery. Pottery, porcelain, glass, that's kind of my soft spot. And starting things out, no surprise, is a variety of pottery. A lot of these were picked up from a flea market. Unfortunately, the name escapes me. If I remember it, I will try and put it into the video notes if I maybe find a receipt or something. It was a chain, which I had not heard of. Being based in Illinois, I was not familiar with them. We went to 2 or 3 of them. We covered a good chunk of the state because the first one was so good, we wanted to find the others. Unfortunately, the other ones weren't nearly as good. It was the one that was farthest north that was the best. And picked up some great items, some great vintage items that had some really fantastic prices on them, including this set of Taylor Smith & Taylor LuRay Pastel bowls. These are the berry bowls, admittedly not necessarily the most desirable size. Nice little small size in the yellow, blue, and the green. These are all in perfect condition, really nice vintage condition. They've got the stilt marks on the back from when they were fired. You can see those. They're all clearly stamped that they're part of the LuRay Pastels line, and then they're marked TS&T, which stands for Taylor Smith & Taylor. The 3 bowls, the set of them, was 75 cents. So even though they're not big sellers, the ones that have sold in 2020, there was a set of 6 that sold for 20 bucks. So, you know, we're not talking about big numbers here. There was a set of 4 that sold for 20 bucks, 2 sold for 15. So I'm probably looking at the $5 to $10 range at best for the set of 3. So I may not list them on Etsy. I may put them into my showcase at the Antique Mall if it ever, let's stay positive, when it opens back up. But with only 75 cents into them, I don't really need to make a lot of money, and they just were in really good shape. And again, if you've seen some of my videos, my overall philosophy as I've done this, it's not completely altruistic, but there is a part of me that will pick up some interesting items simply to make sure that they can go into another good home before they get damaged. These pieces are not chipped, they're not cracked, they're in perfect condition. Someone will want these in their collection, and if I can pass them on to them and make a little bit of money at the same time, that's great. But I don't need to make a lot of money. This is a side hustle for me, so this was a 75-cent investment. I should be able to turn around. Again, they may not end up on Etsy because there's not a huge dollar amount to make from there. Need to see how many others were listed. But anyway, that was one of the pickups from that flea market. Same flea market picked up this blue and white porcelain Delft bowl. On the bottom, it actually says it is Delft Blau, B-L-A-U-W, which I've not actually seen that term before. Delft Blau, hand-painted, made in Holland. Basically, it's a planter. Several of these have been sold and several are currently listed. They've got names anywhere from a cash pot to a utensil holder to a planter to, you know, whatever. It's just a really nice sized container. It has some age to it. You can maybe see as you see if I can get the sorry, my ring light is giving me quite a bit of glare, but you can see there on the edge, there is quite a bit of crazing. It's interesting that the crazing is very uniform going all the way around, but there are no actual chips or cracks to this. It's really nicely designed with the windmill design in the front, some side decor, you can see the crazing again. And then there's even a little bit of a design onto the back. So it's just a really nice piece. I paid 75 cents for it. So again, almost no investment into it. Right now, the history on these, according to a worth point, they've been selling for anywhere from $16 to $50. I couldn't find this pattern exactly. I found a couple that have the windmill, but as you turn, this pattern changed and this pattern changed. So again, they're hand painted, so it might have been that each artist just had a slightly different design. But the ones that have sold anywhere from $16 to $50. So there's a nice wide range there for a 75-cent investment. There are a number that are already listed, and that is always something you have to take into consideration. They are ranging right now anywhere from $19 plus shipping all the way up to $44, which includes shipping. So I always do free shipping as part of my shop on Etsy. So I'll probably be able to turn this around, maybe list this for around 30 bucks. It's not particularly heavy. I'll have to be careful the size of the box, but it's not particularly heavy. So 30, 35 bucks, including free shipping. I'd be right in line with the low end of what's selling on eBay. And I can hopefully turn this around relatively quickly. Another piece that was picked up at the flea market was this pair of hand-painted plates. They were sold as a pair. They were actually taped together. And the problem, well, it's not really a problem, but the fact is they're not exactly a pair. They are the same model of plate or dish. They do not have a back stamp. They do not have stilt marks. They're unglazed on the back. These are hand painted, signed at the bottom. But this one has a little bit of and you see it reflected in the ring light, it has a little bit of a glare to it. So it has a shiny glaze on it. And it has a gold painted rim that is showing a winter scene of a farm. Looks like a farmhouse. And this one is also showing a winter scene, but this one has more of a matte glaze to it. I'd say it's almost bisque. It doesn't really have that high sheen, high glossy finish to it, and it does not have a gold trim. This one, they are both painted by Oma Wholesome. This one's a little bit easier to read. O-M-A, and then the last name is H-A-L-S-E-M-A or S-E-M-E or S-E-M-S. Can't really tell, I can't really tell. It looks like maybe it's an E. Halseem. Anyway, so this is maybe a blank that they picked up somewhere along the way. I don't know if it was a local blank or, they imported it wherever they got it because the blank itself is not marked. But this is a hand-painted piece. It's a really attractive piece. I like this bisque one. I tend to like the ones that don't have the high gloss. And I just think that this framework of the holly berries and leaves is just really pretty. So both of these, I got these, again, they were taped together. And the pair of them was $1. So once again, this flea market has some great pricing. There's really not a lot to compare comparables on this, because there's really not anything specifically. So it's really just a hand-painted plate. Not going to get a lot of money, but I could probably turn around and get maybe 20, 25 bucks each out of these, including the shipping. It's not particularly thick. It's not particularly heavy. It'll be over a pound, but it's not particularly heavy. So the freight should not cost me a fortune. And I'm only into these 50 cents a piece. So these were just a really nice find, again, from that flea market. I also stopped at a Goodwill along the way, and I have found a lot of these chop plates. Admittedly, they don't sell particularly well for me. I've sold some in my shop. They seem to sell in the shop better than online. I think because, again, they're fairly large, and so the shipping on these tends to put the price out of people's range. But this particular one is a Flower Hill pattern from Yamaka, Y-A-M-A-K-A. Their Avanti line, A-V-A-N-T-I. And that's all very clearly spelled out on the back. Looking online, there were no sales of this pattern at all. Of the chop plate. This is a little over 12 inches. They had some sales of the salad plate, but that's not particularly comparable. This, I have $2 into this. So most of the chop plates I was turning around selling them at the shop for about 10 bucks. When I tried to do them online, I was needing to sell them for 25 to 30, which I think was maybe pricing that out because of the freight. What I've started doing with some of the plates, this is a little bit larger, but I might go ahead and try it on Etsy, is go ahead and do that. My shop offers a 30 free shipping for any combined order over 35 bucks. Put this in at 10 bucks. If they end up combining it with something else to get the free freight, you know, it might be a little bit risky, but so far in the limited experiment that I've done with that, a lot of the people are buying just the one item that they're looking for, and they're paying for the freight. So, you know, I might try and put this online first, because right now my shop the antique mall is closed. So if I'm going to get this listed, maybe start online and see what I can do with it. Jumping back into the flea market, got another piece there. This is actually one of those DIY home ceramics pieces, ceramic studio pieces. It's marked on the bottom, Betty Copas, C-O-P-A-S. It's dated 1970, and I think that's fun. That happens to be the year I was born, but I think it's fun when the dates are so clearly marked on them. And so this is an earlier one compared to what you typically find in a lot of the DIY ceramic pieces that are out there, more late 70s, typically 80s. When I picked this up, it's kind of a lotus bowl pattern. It's painted. I believe this is a glaze technique that the paint itself did this bubbling effect. My mother used to run she had a craft studio in the basement, and she did teaching classes, and they had a series of paints that when you painted on, they looked like little rocks that sat in the paint, and then when you fired it, they kind of almost literally exploded, and that's what got some of the drip colors and some of those effects. So I don't remember seeing this particular effect, but it's it gives these little raised bumps. Unfortunately, I was so excited to pick it up for $1 that I kind of glanced over the fact that several of them have, for lack of a better term, popped. I think they've been scraped off. I have a feeling that when this was new, every one of these little pieces had this little raised, puffy part. And then these is where that puffy part has somehow been knocked off, either by bumping into something and cracking them off. I don't think it deters from the appeal, because again, I picked it up, was holding it, it didn't even register with me at the time I was buying it. It was more when I was getting ready to photograph it that I started realizing, like, oh, you know what, I don't think it's supposed to be that way. But the effect it does not deter from it at all. You could argue that maybe it did that initially. If it got too big, maybe the top popped open. I don't know. But again, it's very shallow bowl. Probably, could be a trinket because it's fairly big in the middle that you can put your hand in the middle. Maybe put a flower frog in there. Whatever the case, it's just kind of a cool dish. I have $1 into it, and hopefully we'll be able to turn this around on Etsy for maybe 15 to 20 bucks, including shipping, because it's relatively lightweight. The next piece I picked up is this was from either a Goodwill or for a Salvation Army. The tag is a little bit different, so I don't think it was a Goodwill. This is a piece of Stengel pottery, and for a while, because of their stamps are typically hard to read, I thought they said Trenton, Illinois, which happens to be where Jeffrey from Real Nifty Vintage is based. And one time I tagged him in a photo, and he laughed at me and said, no, that's Trenton, New Jersey. I could hear the silent moron after that, but regardless. So this is Stengel pottery from Trenton, New Jersey. It is stamped on the back. It does have the price tag of 99 cents. It's a small piece of from Stengel called Country Garden is the line. It is a 6 1/8 inch diameter. Again, this is not going to be a big seller. This might end up going into my shop at the antique mall, because they're typically selling for around $5. So I could sell it for maybe $15, including shipping. It'd be fine. I'm not sure if an individual plate like this, it is kind of a nifty little design. I'm not 100% sure the era that this is from, but I would say maybe 50s or 60s, maybe getting into 70s. It would be nice to be able to say I could get that much. It's probably just something I'll put in my booth for, $3 to $5. I only have $1 into it. you know, I'd like to make more. I thought it would make more when I was doing the searching at the flea market. What I didn't realize is that a couple of the images only showed one image, and so then you saw a sold dollar amount. But then when I got home and I looked at the description, it was a set of 3 or a set of 4 that was selling for, you know, $20. So again, in some cases that still would have been only it's like $5 a plate. I was thinking it was selling 10 to $20 per plate. So lesson learned. You're in a rush. Again, it was $1. I'm not overly worried about it. The next piece was kind of exciting. This was at the flea market as well. This one was probably one of the most expensive things I bought. It was $3. And sorry, we're getting quite a bit of white balance problem there, but it was $3. It is a piece of Miramar, California pottery. So it says on the back, it's etched into the back, Miramar of California, C-A-L-I-F. A copyright stamp is from 1957. So that was when it was originally designed. And it's model number 743. It is a very dark green dish. Hopefully you can pick it up in the camera. You can see there's a gold kind of sponge effect that just goes around the edges. It's not in the bowl of this dish. It's just along these raised edges. And then this series of white, almost bluish white fruit. You got a banana, a pear, an apple, and probably an orange are just kind of lined up. They are attached. You know, these don't come off. This was all fired together. There are no examples that I can find on WorthPoint that this has ever sold. And WorthPoint goes back to something like 2013 or 2012. So it goes back pretty far. I cannot find any examples of this having sold. I also cannot find any examples currently listed on either Etsy or eBay. It's possible somebody listed it, you know, trying to describe the dish, but all the information is right there. So I did combinations of Miramar, California, Miramar 743. I just didn't find it. So I did sell just recently I sold a Miramar butter warmer. It was a little 3-piece dish. It had a wire stand, a little cup that sat at the bottom that would hold the tea light, and then kind of like a little gravy boat that sat on the top of the stand so that the candle would light and warm the butter boat, I guess. That ended up selling for a very decent price. I remember when I found it, I looked it up, and it just seems Miramar is it's either a higher quality name, or maybe it just doesn't come up as much, but it seemed to garner some pretty decent prices. So I'm anticipating I should be able to get some decent money out of this one. I'll definitely do this free shipping. I'll definitely put this on Etsy. I think I'll get a better price out of Etsy than at my booth. And I'm thinking I'm gonna probably list this between 50 and 60 bucks, including free shipping. I think I sold the butter warmer for something like 35 or 40. So the significantly larger size, fairly traditional or fairly non-specific, just dark green. You know, this could pretty much go on any table. It's not garishly painted. Just an attractive piece, so I'm really excited to put that online. The next piece that I picked up is from Knowles, Edwin Knowles China Company. It has this very cool handle effect where they kind of are like little wings that come out, and they're somewhat, you know, there's a little bit of a curvature to those, whether it's not just a straight line. This is it's Union made. Looks like it was made in 1937. It's a Yorktown shape. Several of these plates are on Etsy, are on eBay, have sold on Etsy, or have sold on eBay. This pattern, even with the red rim, this size, this shape, this name, this flower pattern I cannot find. A lot of them have a little more of an Art Deco look. There's literally there's a black line that kind of represents a window ledge or a stair step that flowers are sitting on, or there's a couple others that are, you know, more vertically. This one still has the curvature where the flower follows the curve of the plate and then still has the other piece on the other side. Really attractive. I'm not 100% sure what those flowers are. You know, I was thinking trumpet vine, but I'm not, that might be, like, that's kind of what I'm thinking these are, but these almost look like dandelion fluff, so I have a feeling that's not what they are. So I tried a couple combinations of red floral, you know, with this name. Did not find it. I do not, just like the Miramar, I'm not saying that it's particularly rare. It's just for whatever reason, the history of its sales are not being captured. And so, but the ones that have sold, they're ranging anywhere from $4 up to $24 plus shipping. So I've got $1 in this. This again came from the flea market. I've got $1 in this. I think I could probably turn this around. I could put this in, try that same thing, $10 plus shipping. It's not particularly heavy. That I think it might have a better chance on Etsy than it will at my shop. As I mentioned, I also picked up some glass. A couple of the pieces, or at least this piece, I had a hard time finding anything about it. It does have stamped on the very bottom the letter A and then a dash and then 48. And I looked it up. The only thing I could think of was, you know, was it Hazel Atlas before it became Hazel Atlas? Was it Anchor before it became Anchor Hawking? That looks like it's just a very simple Arial block A. It's not anything specific. I don't know what this is, and I can't imagine that it's possible that the 48 represents the year it was made, but to me, this would be later than that. The little leatherette wrapper that's on here has got a little snap piece on there that it's very brittle. You know, just folding it back, you can see there's a little bit of a crack that formed there. I picked it up for $1. What I liked about it, even though I really couldn't find anything even in the store, is it's marked the USS North Carolina, Wilmington, North Carolina. And I just think there would be some people that would be interested in that. I mean, it's a very regional, very specific piece. Again, not going to bring out a huge amount of money, but something I could list on Etsy, taking it from Indiana, bringing it to Illinois, maybe getting it back to North Carolina, or somebody that has a connection to the USS North Carolina might be interested in something like that. So if I could put this on, again, something like the $10 plus shipping, it would be a fairly inexpensive kind of commemorative piece. Probably, I would think that's 60s. Could go into the 70s based on the amber color. So anyway, didn't find any specs, but that's that piece. What I did find some detail on, and what I found some comps on, is this Edgar Watkins glass. If I do it against my shirt, you might be able to see it. It's kind of this cool modern design where it's these 3 circles that are done in black and gold. They encircle the glass itself. There's a gold rim at the top. All of the gold is in really good shape all the way around, and the piece has his signature right on the design, so the Edgar Watkins design. These have sold relatively regularly. There's been many sales just in 2020, a handful that are listed as well. There are actually, Etsy, there are no listings. There's a handful on eBay, but they're listing in eBay anywhere from $8 plus shipping to make it around 20 bucks to $24 plus shipping, and then the example was 34 bucks, and that was to ship it to Illinois. The ones that have sold, they range from $7 to $15 without shipping. So this is, again, probably a case I'll end up listing it for 10 bucks plus shipping on top of that. It's a really nice looking piece. It would have been great if I could have had a pair, but even some of the individuals seem to still be selling in that $7 to $15 range listed as singles. So this was a really nice whiskey glass to find. Another piece, I was more excited when I found it and then less excited as I did the research. This was back at the flea market. It's a pair of candle holders that I picked up for 50 cents for the pair. And it's something that I recognized, but at the time I recognized it, I wasn't 100% sure what it was. So I did some Google Lens, did some searching on it, and it turns out these are carved soapstone candlestick holders. And they are considered African. They are not marked. There's no etching. They're probably at one point was a paper label. They're in really good shape. They're not chipped up. They're not cracked. There's kind of, you know, really nice, the African tree design in there. This one had a zebra on it, which I think made it kind of cool. Yeah, and this one had a 4-legged critter. Horse. I'm sure it's not a horse. Wildebeest. I don't know. What do they have in Africa? 50 cents for the pair. Did a little bit of digging. These are not popular. I want to say they have kind of a 90s vibe. That's kind of what I'm thinking from my background, that's what these are. there was one sold in 2020, and it was a single. It did sell for 18 bucks, but only one. There were 2 sales in 2019, 0 sales in 2018. So these do not, there are plentiful. There are many listed right now. It's something that I'm probably not going to be able to sell at the antique mall because they have a prerequisite that everything's older than 1980. So these will go onto Etsy. I'm going to just have to sell them for cheap. They're somewhat heavy since they are soapstone. They are somewhat heavy, so I need to be careful. But if I can maybe sell them for 20 bucks for the pair, including shipping, I probably will be okay because they can, nest somewhat close together in a relatively small box. That I'll be able to make my 50 cents, but I'm not gonna be able to make a lot more beyond that. So I was a little disappointed because, again, I tried to do some quick search at the store and I thought I saw more expensive prices, but the really more expensive prices were back in 2015, 2013. Still not huge, but they were selling for 20 to 30 bucks. You really ought to pay attention to that. At some point, it's great that Worth Point does go that far back because in some cases, something that listed it 8 years ago may be the only thing that lists it with actually any level of detail to know, well, who made it, what's the stamps mean, any of that. So it's good to have that information, but you do really have to pay attention to the price tag or the date stamp on those prices because things, in some cases, go up, but a lot of cases, things have gone down. So picked them up. I'm out 50 cents, even if I don't in the time to photograph them. But you know what? They're nice looking pair, and maybe somebody will take into it. So the last 2 items that I've got to show are 2 of my favorites. One of them is not necessarily my favorite because of what it is. It's my favorite because of where I got it. It was at an antique mall, and it was a mall that it was a booth at the mall that was dedicated to the Humane Society for that county. I want to say Douglas County, but I could be making that up. I don't remember. I don't know if there is a Douglas County in Indiana, but regardless, that's what it was. They were selling this for $8, so I really paid up for it. In normal cases, I would never pay that much for something like this because the comps really, there are almost no comps for this as it exists. It's very clearly stamped. It's a Red Wing Pottery. It's model number 1306, so it's very easy to research. The last one of these that sold in 2017, and it only sold for 15 bucks. So they're not particularly valuable. There are newer or other designs that are very similar, like this exact same shape, but maybe this lip doesn't go down as far. It comes out. You can see there's kind of a curvature here. There's one that's a little bit more squared off. There have been some of these that have been selling, and many that are listed in the $20 to $30 range. It's something I would like to be able to make some decent money out of. It's going to be pretty heavy to ship, and they're not selling particularly well online. I might try it on Etsy, but not let it renew, so that if it doesn't sell within the first 4 months, I would just switch it over to my antique shop at the antique mall. And, if I could get 15, 20 bucks, I was happy giving the $8 to the Humane Society. So it's kind of like a charitable donation to them. I did get something out of it. So like I said, it's not my favorite piece, although it's pretty. It's got the pink interior and this gray exterior. It's pink and gray. I think there is, it'd look great in my daughter's bedroom. So anyway, so that was kind of a cool piece. And then the other one, which is my favorite piece just overall, this was back at the original flea market. It's this great glass bottle, and it was $2. I did not find any, it's not really stamped in any way. The closest thing I could find was in the lid. There's a number 1 right along there. I don't know what particular reference that has. Maybe that's a liter, gallon, 1 quart. I'm not sure. It's just a very cool looking bottle that's in very, very good condition. There's no chips or cracks in the rim, no chips or cracks on the lid. It has a polished pontil mark at the bottom, so it's got the pontil mark, but you can see it's been polished off, but it was blown into a mold because there is still a seam. So it wasn't super high end, but it was a well-made piece of glass. I wouldn't go into shape-wise, would have said the 60s, but because of the color, probably more likely the 70s. I have a glass collection. If you looked at my Show Off Your Bunker challenge, you saw quite a bit of it. I'm tempted to keep this for my own personal collection, but it doesn't really fit the rest of my collection. So I probably will sell it, and I'm probably going to end up listing it for around 30 to 35 bucks with free shipping. It's going to be somewhat expensive to ship because it's going to have to go in a pretty decent sized box, so that's a little unfortunate. but I think it's gonna be it's worth it. It's just a nice looking piece, and this might be another case where maybe I do try and sell it online to see if there's anything special about it, if it gets picked up. If I don't sell it within 4 months when it goes to renew, go ahead and put it in my antique shop or the antique mall, because this would fit within the range of dates that they allow. And with only $2 into it, I can make easily. I mean, this is easily going to pick up $10 even at the antique mall. So that's a good addition as well. So that is the second half of my Forgotton haul. So I hope you enjoyed it. I will try and have some of these items posted up onto Etsy maybe before the video goes up. That is going to be my ongoing motivation going forward. Is the reason I was falling behind. I enjoyed sourcing more than I enjoyed listing. And I need to really, my storage space is asking me kindly to not bulk up so much on items that are not listed for sale. I've got to be able to start turning these things. So hopefully I can get some of these things listed. If you see anything that you like that you don't see listed, it might be because I put it aside for the antique mall for when it does reopen. Just drop me a line. You can reach me directly at trustyhuckstermercantile@gmail.com. If you haven't already, if you've gotten this far into the video, I appreciate you giving it a thumbs up, maybe subscribing to my channel, and give me some comments there as well. If you wanted to try and pick up anything, you can leave a comment there, or just tell me what you like, what you didn't like, if there's anything else you'd like to see differently going forward. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram and Etsy, and YouTube. All of them can be found under TH Mercantile, Trusty Huckster Mercantile, but it's abbreviated. And I appreciate you sitting through this haul. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you're staying safe, and have a good day. Goodbye.